The government has decided to maintain electricity and water tariffs in the peninsula. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob said the government is committed to bearing the 5.8 billion ringgit subsidy despite the rising cost of fuel and power generation. This means the rebate of 2 cents per kilowatt hour is maintained for all domestic consumers and no surcharge is imposed. Therefore, Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri said there is no increase in electricity tariffs to domestic consumers in the peninsula. In a statement, he said a surcharge of 3.70 cents per kilowatt hour is kept for non-domestic consumers, namely commercial and industrial consumers. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister also said that the government had decided not to float the price of chicken. He added that the new ceiling price will be announced soon by the Agriculture and Food Industry Minister. Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri said the decision announced today proves that the government is concerned about the people's welfare. He said it would ensure that the people were not burdened by the rising cost of living. The Ministry of Education, MOE, has announced a 25% allowance rate increment for its boarding school wardens, which has not been reviewed for the past 25 years. In a video posted on his official Facebook page today, Education Minister Dr. Mohammad Razzi Majidin said, effective the 1st of August, the allowance rate for chief wardens and wardens would be increased to 350 ringgit and 300 ringgit per month, respectively. According to the minister, the last time the hostel warden's allowance rate was reviewed was in 1997. In addition, Dr. Mohammad Razzi said a total of 3,813 new wardens will be appointed in 1,874 boarding schools under MOE in an effort to strengthen their portfolios.
Ini merupakan peningkatan sebanyak 63% daripada 6,055 orang warden kepada 9,868 orang warden. Dengan peningkatan jumlah warden asrama ini, maka penggiliran jadual bertugas warden akan dapat dilaksanakan di semua sekolah berasrama bawah KPM.
He added that these improvements involved a financial implication amounting to nearly 19 million ringgit. The government is constantly monitoring the situation to stabilize palm oil prices in the market, where the price of fresh fruit bunches had dropped to 1,000 ringgit per metric ton as of 22nd June. Deputy Plantation Industries and Commodities Minister Datuk Seri Dr. Wee Jack Sang said the price of oil palm would depend on the international market supply and demand.
Kerajaan akan melihatlah bagaimana kalau dapat, insyaAllah kita nak stabilkan harga itu lebih penting daripada harga. Yalah, makin tinggi makin baguslah untuk rakyat kan. Tapi inilah realiti yang berlaku. Jadi kita masih lagi melihat perkara ini. Kami akan pastikan, mantaulah seterusnya apa yang berlaku.
He told this to reporters after officiating the construction of a food and beverage kiosk made from wood plastic composite (WPC) in Port Dickson today. The project is a collaboration involving the Malaysian Timber Industry Board, Port Dickson Municipal Council, and Perceptive Profile Sendirian Berhad. Meanwhile, Datuk Seri Dr. Wee said the biocomposites industry in Malaysia has been growing rapidly, recording export worth 4.3 billion ringgit last year, or 19% of the total timber exports value of 22.74 billion ringgit. The Deputy Minister said the major exporters of biocomposite products comprising plywood, veneer and fiberboard are the United States, Japan, China and Singapore. Explaining further, he said there are 176 plywood factories, 7 factories, each producing chipboards and fiberboards, and 3 wood plastic composite WPC factories in the country for producing biocomposite raw materials, especially for the furniture and construction sectors. At the global level, Datuk Seri Wee said the country is ranked 5th as a plywood exporter, 17 for fiberboard, and 29 for chipboard. Datuk Seri Wee also said that the WPC market is expected to see sustained global growth over the next 5 years, driven by the growth of the construction and building sector, especially in North America and Europe. The Deputy Minister, who expressed optimism that WPC will be the focus of importing countries in tandem with the rise in demand for environmentally friendly timber products from developed countries, said more initiatives need to be implemented to introduce wood products to the global market. WPC products are environmentally friendly timber alternatives and are produced from two main materials, namely natural wood and plastic fibers. With a large-scale poultry farm in Malacca, the supply of chicken should not be an issue, according to Datuk Sri Sulaiman Mat Ali. The Chief Minister also suggested that chicken traders source their supply directly from poultry farms.
Peniaga-peniaga ni, dia boleh mendapatkan harga yang lebih baik kalau mereka terus dapatkan ayam ini di ladang. Contohnya, pergi kat Walai, beli dekat Walai sendiri. Semua peniaga-peniaga. Jadi, bekalan ayam yang kita makan hari ini tak adalah berkurangan. Sebab orang meniaga ayam satu hari sampai 10 ekor. Kalau satu restoran ambil 10-5 ekor, yang kita orang yang nak makan ayam ni, kita semua ni yang nak makan ayam, mungkin ayam tu berkurang. Itu.
He said this after visiting the MBMB wet market in BACAAN today. The Sultan of Johor, Sultan Ibrahim Sultan Iskandar, is against street protests, as proposed by a DAP leader to pressure the government to resolve the issue of the rising cost of living in the country. In fact, His Majesty stressed that such a protest is not a responsible way to find a solution to the problem, and that there were many constructive ways to resolve the matter. Sultan Ibrahim said, street protests never achieved anything except chaos, destruction, and a black mark on the nation's history. His Majesty, in a Facebook post today, also said that laws must be respected and upheld. Sultan Ibrahim was referring to a recent statement by DAP's Central Executive Committee member who urged the public to gather in the streets of Kuala Lumpur to signal their frustration at the government over the rising costs of living. His Majesty said street demonstrations will also adversely affect the economy, scare investors from coming to the country, and set the country further back in its recovery from the impact of COVID-19. Sultan Ibrahim urged the public not to go down this road, as the country's growth must be carefully nurtured through mature dialogue, not demonstrations that risk public safety and national security. Coming up next, 900,000 Muslim tourists targeted to come to Malaysia. Stay with us. The Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture, MOTAC, is targeting the arrival of 900,000 Muslim tourists to Malaysia this year. Its Minister, Datuk Sri Nancy Shukri, said this could be achieved by aggressively and proactively promoting Malaysia as a Muslim-friendly tourist destination at the national and international levels. Datuk Sri Nancy said with Muslims forming the majority of the country's population, the availability of Muslim-friendly facilities was among the factors attracting Muslim tourists to visit Malaysia.
Ini adalah di antara perkembangan yang terbaru melalui Islamic Tourism Center Malaysia. Kalau kita lihat pencapaian Islamic ITC di selama ini banyak sudah dilakukan, walaupun ia merupakan satu badan yang kecil, agensi yang kecil, tapi ia jadi satu tempat tumpuan untuk menganjurkan program-program yang juga boleh menarik pelancong-pelancong dari luar negara, terutama sekali dari negara-negara Islam, the Muslim countries yang mencari tempat untuk mereka pergi melawat, untuk mereka melihat, mempelajari lebih kepada sejarah Islam dan juga budaya Islam di negara kita.
The minister said this after launching the 2022 Islamic Tourism Week organized by the Islamic Tourism Center, ITC, in Putrajaya today. As of April, a total of 460,000 Muslim tourists were reported to have arrived in the country. Malaysia is targeting the arrival of 230 million Muslim tourists by 2028, with projected revenue of $225 billion. Malaysia recorded 5.3 million Muslim tourist arrivals in 2019, with a revenue of 16.72 billion ringgit. FGV Holdings Berhad, FGV remains committed to investing and expanding toward a broader range of sustainable and synergized agri-businesses and aims to move into higher value-added business activities to achieve more stable returns. In a statement today, FGV Chairman Datuk Zulkifli Abdul Wahab said FGV aspires to become one of the world's leading sustainable agri-business players with reputable product brands and strong distribution capabilities. Strength. He said with this, FGV is advancing its sustainability journey as the first food and agri-business company in Malaysia to formalize a climate action plan target with the United Nations. According to Datuk Zulkifli, FGV intends to change the narrative for Malaysian palm oil while ensuring that environmental, social and corporate governance (ESG) considerations continue to take the center stage in all FGV's undertakings. He believed that this is key to advocating the sustainable benefits of palm oil at a global level and helping the industry gain international acceptance and support as the way forward to meet the needs of a growing world population. Petroleum Nasional Berhad Petronas has maintained its position as the world's strongest oil and gas ONG brand for the third consecutive year, according to the Brand Finance 2022 annual report on the most valuable and strongest ONG brands. The company also remains among the top 10 most valuable ONG brands globally in 2022. In a statement today, the National Oil Company said the rank has been attributed to the results of its Brand Strength Index (BSI), which increased from 87 last year to 87.7 in 2022, judged on a brand's performance, focusing on intangible measures relative to its competitors. Brand Finance's assessment of stakeholder equity incorporates original market research data from over 100,000 respondents in more than 35 countries and across nearly 30 sectors. In the 2022 Brand Finance Global 500 report on the world's most valuable brands released early this year, Petronas' consistent brand performance had contributed to a brand value of $13.6 billion in 2022, a 13% increase from 2021. And in other news, police have advised the public who have lost their identity card to just report it accordingly and not cook up excuses like having been robbed. Gombak District Police Chief ACP Zainal Muhammad said that so far this year, 71 people had been charged with lodging false reports over the loss of their identity card to avoid getting fined by the National Registration Department (JPN). He said the false reports were lodged by individuals aged between 20 and 40. He said investigations showed that these complainants used false excuses like having fallen prey to robbers and snatch thieves. Court action has been taken against 71 people and 2 cases are still under investigation.
Kan, mereka ini membuat create cerita dengan mengatakan disamun, contoh dia, diragut, contoh dia. Kan? Actually, apa yang berlaku sebenarnya adalah negligence yang dilakukan oleh personel itu sendiri sehingga membuat IC dia hilang. Itu isu dia. So, dia menggunakan PDRM ini sebagai satu jembatan agar mereka mendapatkan IC dengan tanpa membuat sebarang bayaran.
ACP Zainal was speaking at a media conference after attending a ceremony to dispose of case materials at the Gombak District Police Headquarters by Selangor Criminal Investigation Department Chief SAC Baharudin Mat Taib today. A resort and passenger boat company involved in the incident of 4 missing foreign divers was fined 5,000 ringgit by Kota Tinggi Magistrates Court yesterday for operating without sufficient manpower. The missing Malaysian Maritime Enforcement Agency (MMEA) Maritime Zone Director Commander Khairul Nizam Misran said Magistrate Rashida Baharom meted out the sentence against Winter Snow Sindiran Berhad, which was represented by a 61-year-old man who pleaded guilty to the offence. The company representative paid the fine. On 6 April, 4 foreign divers were reported missing while conducting diving training in the waters of Pulau Tokong Sanggol, some 9 nautical miles off Tanjung Leman, Mersing. 3 of them were found, while a teenage male diver is still missing. Khairul Nizam said investigations found that during the incident, the boat was not manned with sufficient crew as required by the port officer under the Merchant Shipping Ordinance 1952. In a statement today, he said the company's representative pleaded guilty to committing an offence under Rule 12 of the Boats Rules 1953. Hence, Khairul Nizam reminded all resort and boat operators to comply with the stipulated laws and regulations before carrying out water recreational activities to prevent any accidents at sea, including the loss of life. 3 divers, Christine Grodham, 35, from Norway, British Adrian Peter Chesters, 46, and Alexia Alexandra Molina, 18, a French, were found safe, while Adrian's son, Nathan Renz Chesters, 14, died. In our foreign segment, no more dorm restrictions for migrant workers in Singapore. Stay with us. Migrant workers in Singapore no longer need special permission to leave their dormitories starting today after 2 years of COVID-19 curbs. However, campaigners criticized the decision to maintain some restrictions, which they believe to be discriminatory in nature. Around 300,000 migrant workers, many of them from South Asia, live in dorms in the prosperous city-state, where they are typically packed into shared rooms and sleep on bunk beds. The vast complexes were hit by COVID-19 and lockdown at the start of the pandemic, casting a rare spotlight on what rights activists said were the poor living conditions of the low-paid workers. When the restrictions were lifted for the rest of Singapore, it was not fully lifted for these workers who were still affected for the past 2 years. As a result, they had suffered distress due to not knowing a specific date they will also be free of the restriction. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson's Conservative Party was defeated in 2 parliamentary by-elections today in a sign of voter discontent after months of scandals and growing cost of living crisis. The defeats, including one in a previously safe seat, could renew speculations about Johnson's future after he earlier this month survived one move by Conservative lawmakers against him. Johnson has come under intense pressure to resign after he was fined for breaking COVID-19 lockdown rules after a police investigation into gatherings at his Downing Street offices. The centrist Liberal Democrat Party won the seats of Tiverton and Honiton in a deeply conservative part of southwest England, with a majority of over 6,000, overturning a majority of more than 24,000 that was won by the Conservatives in 2019. The Liberal Democrat said it was the biggest ever majority to be overturned at a British parliamentary by-election. Johnson on Thursday rejected the suggestion that he could resign if the Conservatives lost both seats, saying it was common for governing parties to lose mid-term by-elections. The by-elections were triggered by high-profile resignations of Conservative lawmakers. Confrontations between protesters and security forces erupted in Quito yesterday after a large group gathered in the city's north to demand an end to blockades and emergency measures. Since 13 June, discontent over fuel, food and other essentials has sparked violent protests across Ecuador, causing President Guillermo Lasso to proclaim a state of exception in 6 districts, including the capital, Quito. The government allowed thousands of marchers into the headquarters of a major cultural organization and pulled back security forces there. In exchange, they asked for people and goods like food and medicines to be allowed to circulate free. Protest leaders denounced police violence during the demonstrations, with one protester identified as Byron Guatatoka killed after being struck in the head by a tear gas canister. Demonstrators have entered flower farms and oil terminals, causing damage in places and disrupting the production of crude oil. And moving on to sports, all eyes on national doubles squad for badminton gold medals. Stay with us. Following the withdrawal of national ace men's single shuttler Lee Zejia from the 2022 Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, United Kingdom, the spotlight now falls onto the doubles category to achieve the 2 gold medal target set by the Badminton Association of Malaysia, BAM. Expectations are slightly heavier on the shoulders of rising stars Pearly Tan and M. Tina, who will be playing in the Games set for 28 July until 8 August. According to BAM coaching director Rexy Manaki, Pearly and Tina has been fairly consistent in the performance since the Uber Cup, further strengthening his belief that the pair could stage something exciting in Birmingham.
Ya, kita harus letak sasaran bahwa di women's double siapa lagi? Pasti si Pearly dengan Tina ya, dengan dia punya tren cukup positif dari mulai Uber Cup sampai Thailand dan juga Indonesia Open ya. Itu tren positif yang dia ini, saya harap dia bisa konsisten dan saya rasa dia punya peluang untuk bring back gold adalah. Untuk Aaron dengan Yik saya masih yakin bahwa dia ada punya kemampuan untuk pergi jauh seperti itu.
Throughout 2022, the pair, ranked number 10 in the world, had clinched bronze in the Asia Team Badminton Championship, as well as advanced to the quarterfinals in the All England and Asian Badminton Championships in the Philippines. And ahead of the Malaysian Badminton Open Championship set to begin on 28 June at Axiata Arena, Bukit Jalil, national professional men's duo Tan Kian Ming Lai Peijing admitted that the draw in which they will be facing fellow compatriots Goh Soon Huat Siobhan Lai in the first round was unpleasant indeed. However, the 9th-ranked duo was determined to give it their all in their quest for a title this year. Regarding their expectations for the first-round clash, Peijing said each of them has their own advantages, which they have identified throughout their training together.
We will try our best to get one more title or whatever. Tapi as you see, kita dua tournament first round pun lawan Soon Huat dengan Siobhan, so it's an unlucky draw lah, I rasa. Tapi kita tetap semangat untuk nak try fight lah. As you see, every day we train together, and so memang dah hafal, memang dah tahu strategi apa yang kita main, apa kelebihan kita, apa kelemahan kita pun sama juga. So in the end kita just tengok that day punya performance lah.
On the other hand, Kian Ming said after training since their return from 2 championships in Indonesia, they are ready to take on the Super 750 tour held on their home turf. The Korean Open champions have displayed consistent performance since the start of the year. And on to European football, Manchester United midfielder Paul Pogba is set to rejoin his former club Juventus after both sides have reached an agreement in principle. The 29-year-old will be joining Juventus in a free transfer, as United will not be renewing his contract, which ends this July. According to Italian media, the length of the deal offered to Pogba is still yet to be finalized. However, it will either be a 4-year contract or a 3-year deal with an option for a further year. And Pogba is expected to officially sign the contract at the start of July. The transfer of Juventus would mark a return to a club where Pogba spent 4 years before rejoining United in 2016. The Frenchman had won the 2018 World Cup with his national team previously, joined Juventus from United in a free transfer back in 2012. As he closes on his 30s, Pogba is aware this could be the last big move of his career and wants to take his time to ensure he makes the right decision. And in tennis, world number 1 Daniel Medvedev lost to Roberto Bautista Agut in the quarterfinals of the Mallorca Open on Thursday, while second seed Stefanos Tsitsipas advanced to the last 4. Medvedev was beaten 6-3, 6-2 by Bautista Agut, who avenged his defeat by the Russian in last week's quarterfinals at Halle. Bautista Agut broke Medvedev once in the first set and twice in the second, as he earned a 4th win in 5 meetings with the US Open champion. The loss marks the end of Medvedev's grass court season. Bautista Agut takes on Switzerland's 303rd ranked Antoine Bellier in the semi-finals. Meanwhile, Tsitsipas needed 3 sets to get past American Marcos Giron. The Greek saved 2 break points to start the final set and then broke Giron in the 8th game before completing a 7-6, 4-6, 6-3 victory. Tsitsipas, who has lost in the first round on 3 of his 4 appearances at Wimbledon, will play France's Benjamin Bonzi for a place in the final. He has never won a title on grass. Head on to motorsports, the Safari Rally in Kenya. Sebastian Ogier kicked off his title defense in style with the fastest time in yesterday's afternoon's thrilling opener. The Frenchman in his Toyota recorded a time of 3 hours, 18 minutes and 8 seconds, just 0.5 of a second faster than second place Thierry Neuville. Neuville's Hyundai teammate Ot Tanak finished the race in 3rd place. The Kenya Rally has 19 stages altogether and is the 6th race of a total of 13 rounds. The overall standings, however, was dominated by Finnish racer Kalle Rovanperä with a comfortable lead at the top with 120 points. He leaves his closest competitors far below, with 2nd and 3rd place Neuville and Tanak having collected 65 and 62 points respectively. Rovanperä, however, languished in 11 after making a disastrous start when the 21-year-old ran wide on the first left-hand band and almost rolled his GR Yaris. And that concludes this edition of News at 10. In our top story, no change in Peninsula power and water tariffs. Join us again at 12:30 tomorrow afternoon. Until then, it's lights out. I'm Brenda Paul. Salam Keluarga Malaysia. Have an awesome weekend and take care.